Good day, friends. Welcome to another Word of God. Average folks in the afterlife number 44? Or is it 34? I can't remember. Anyway, I'll put up the right number when it's uploaded. Continuing on with Eric Medhus, My Life After Death, his memoir from heaven, channeled through his medium, Jamie. And here's an interesting chapter called My Typical Day. Obviously, he's quite established by this point. Not quite an old hand, but, getting there. You might be wondering what my typical day is like. I think I'm going to describe it in terms of an Earth Day to make it easier. In what constitutes the morning here, I head to my family's house on Earth and hang with them. It's a great time to be there because it's my mom's favorite time of the day. Everyone's quiet and everyone's happy. When my mom picks up her laptop so she and I can get some work done, I'm there. She fucking works all the time. I don't know how she does it. I like to sit with my family when they're eating or sitting on the couch. I want to listen to the shit they talk about. There are times when I really want to say something, but that's where I draw the line. I'm there to listen and be a quiet presence, not make a bunch of fuss. That's why I use different tactics to get their attention that aren't super obvious. I wonder if my mom notices that there are some days when, not to get all freaky, like the stars are all aligned or something, it's so much easier for me to talk to her. There are some days when she wakes up and actually goes, "Hey, Eric." It's like she knows I'm there. And she hears me in her head. It doesn't always happen that way, but when it does, it feels really good. Communication between humans and spirits isn't, what's the phrase I heard one time? An exact science? Yeah, that's right. Sometimes everything lines up and the floodgates open and it's super easy. And sometimes the energy's not right. It's all about them. Humans, I mean, being in the right emotional place. We're emotional beings, spirits and humans alike. Our emotions are made up of energy. So humans have to be in that emotionally aware and open space to make it easier to communicate with spirits. It takes being more open and emotionally vulnerable. I don't mean vulnerable in a bad way like you're weak. I mean vulnerable in a way that you have the courage to be emotionally open and honest. When you're in that state, it's easier for us to step closer to you and communicate. By communicate, I mean whatever is best for you. Hearing, seeing, dreaming, whatever form that's easiest for us to connect. Anyway, one thing I like to do when I'm at my house is hang around my niece, Arlene. She sleeps in my old room now. When she's asleep, we play together. She's really good at getting out of her body to play around her spirit form. One of the things we like to play is hide and go seek. I also like to hang around my brother, Lucas. We weren't really close when I was alive. We were like two strangers walking past each other in the hallway, even though we lived in the same house and had the same parents. That's different now. I spend a lot of time with him when he's sleeping because that's how he can receive me. Sometimes I can do that easier when he's tipsy after partying with his friends. After I died, he buried his feelings in a little box that he tucked away deep inside of him, and I'm helping release some of that. I'm feeding him positive energy bit by bit that his soul loves to soak up. After that, I like to divide myself and visit various members on the blog my mom runs, Channeling Eric. I can do that because, like I said, I can be in 1,000 places at once. 1,000? No, I don't think so. A lot, sure. Then I like to have some fun. Everything I do is fun, but I mean doing more alone time stuff like traveling to different places on Earth or to other planets, universes and dimensions. I like getting on my manifested motorcycle to feel the speed. Like I mentioned before, I like fly fishing and being out in nature. Just something for me. In the afternoon, if I'm looking at it from Earth's time frame, I like to connect with like-minded spirits to go over what's happening on Earth. I'm talking about those small meet and greets I mentioned in the last chapter. Then in the evening, I like to go back to my family's home, and when it gets dark and everyone in my house is asleep, I visit blog members that live on the other side of the world, like Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries in different time zones. That's when I prank and haunt them. Yeah, I totally do that stuff sometimes. Then, even though it's not like I need to sleep, I take some downtime to think about the blog, my spirit guide work, and my family's healing process and our relationship. I guess that seems a little weird to me still, because I never did that kind of thing before I died. There are things that are important to me now. These things certainly are. Which brings me to my main purpose as a spirit, being a guide. Being a guide is really fucking wonderful. It feels so good. It's not because I get something tangible in return. I don't get rewards, brownie points, or frequent flyer miles or whatever. Nothing like that. I just sincerely love the job because I'm in a position to be the self I longed to be when I was alive, Eric. Even if I wasn't entirely aware of it back then. When you have experiences on Earth, especially for the first time, you learn and grow from them. I can do the same thing here, but I can also access the information I need to help people without having the experiences they've had. Here's an example. Let's say a young girl, 16 years old, has a dad who committed suicide. I already have the experience I need to help her understand about losing someone that way, and I can guide her based on my own suicide. But yeah, my point is that personally, I don't need experiences to grow and to share my knowledge and healing with others like humans do. Sure, it's helpful to have gone through the same experiences as some of the people I help, but like all spirits, I already come preloaded with all the empathy and experience I'll ever need in my job as a guide. It's pretty sweet. I'm going to talk some more about how being a guide works in a bit, but for now I really want to stress how much joy and satisfaction I get from watching humans grow. It's a gift to help someone when they need help, and I love being able to deliver that help in the way that resonates the strongest for each different person. Sometimes people understand it best when it comes with cursing or laughing or teasing. And sometimes others get it more when I'm serious or just plain loving. I deliver it in whatever way will guide them the best. In being a guide, I've really found my calling, and I feel like I'm pretty lucky that it's worked out the way it has. Yeah, and I think we can make an interesting comparison to some things that Melanie experiences in An American Heaven, which, yes, it's a novel, but I based it a lot on spirits I met and experiences I had. Melanie is a sort of a combination character based on a number of deceased young women I met over there, and so are many of the other characters. I just found the novel to be a suitable form in which to explain and delineate many experiences that didn't come out in my own, shall we say, autobiographical books, Eternal Life and How to Enjoy It, and More Adventures in Eternity. So Melanie's, checking in on people. Checked in on Dad, just thought of him and wondered where. Suddenly I'm at Andrea's. That's her father's secretary, wink wink. And since she's passed, he and her mother are not getting along so well, and he's begun a pretty strong friendship with Andrea. They're drinking coffee at our kitchen table and looking serious. Oh, I get it. Dad's explaining how he can't move out like they'd planned. Bad enough me dying, but all this legal stuff, and he's worried about my mom's ability to cope right then. Andrea agrees and, really seems to support him. God, she's nice. I really hope they're able to get together someday. I think they'd make a good couple. I'm sure Mom would meet someone else. I mean, she's got all her faults and all, but a lot of guys really like her. Dinner parties and barbecues at our place, there was always some guy, maybe a friend, a neighbour, or one of Dad's clients, but I'd always see the admiring looks coming her way when she wasn't noticing. She's no great looker, but she's got this kind, care-about-you attitude that people always notice, especially guys. She always thought she was fat, and while she's not exactly a slim babe, she's still got, curves in all the right places. Then it looks like they're going to get friendly, so I disappear pronto. Not really ready for that. Let's face it, it's like really rude. I know what you're thinking. Where do I draw the line between a couple drinking coffee and talking and a couple getting it on? I don't know. I just draw it like everyone does, like you'd do if you were here. Then I can't decide what to do, so I fly around the streets. Flying's always fun, dodging around people and cars like some crazy bird. You know how birds will fly up past your windshield right at the very last second, as if they're like dancing with death? Well, I can do that shit no problem. Take some practice, sure. And you got to set yourself some rules, like not touching or part way going through the windshields, because as a ghost you can go part way through real easy. So the rule is just to skim the glass, but not to touch it. But flying under cars as they pass, flying under, that's the biggie for me. Took a lot of nerve to begin with. I always panicked at the last minute and held back. Don't know why. Stupid really when you can fly right through the thing, no problem. One more thing you'll love when you get here. All you wannabe daredevils. After a while I wonder about Mom. The thought leads me straight to some theatre somewhere. She and Nicole and some other lady I don't know are watching some play and laughing. Well, that's good. I'm glad. I kind of hover there for a bit, taking in the show and the audience. It's way into the middle of the thing and I can't really figure out what's happening. I mean, you know, the story. For no particular reason, I decide to fly up to the Arctic. Really just to see what it's like. So I give myself the command, go north. And away we go. I'm over the Great Lakes, one of them anyway, and in no time, and boy is it ever beautiful. Just like a big sea really, although I guess there's differences if you really get into it. Then Canada, I guess. It looks just like the States as far as I can see. You know, cities and then suburbs and then like fields and some forests and hills and stuff. Why'd I think it'd be any different? More forests and lakes as I go north, miles and miles of them. I start to wonder if they're ever going to end. No people anywhere. I feel like I'm getting lost. And then, after ages, it gets all flat and boring. This must be the tundra. Then it's white with snow, and then it's like nothing but snow no matter where you look. Weird, but, weirdly beautiful. I don't know whether to lie down in the snow and look at the sky or float up there and gaze down at all the snow. So I do some of both. You know me, I like to be fair. It's amazing, it really is, but I get to feel lonely. It's spooky out here in the middle of this white nowhere. No funny looking penguins or dancing bears to liven things up either. I've got this vague notion that there's a lesson for me here, but I can't wait to find out what it is. I think about Eric, and like magic I'm there in his bedroom, watching him tap away at his keyboard. I park myself on the floor opposite and just bask in his dedicated vibe. He's working on something, an essay for class maybe. In a way he looks just like he always did. Of course that's because he's sitting down, but still it's something to hang on to. Well, I guess. It feels like it'll be a while till he sleeps and comes over, but I'm happy to wait, especially after that lonesome jag in the Arctic. Wow, is that weird. In the interval I recall what Liz said about him maybe feeling guilty, for me being dead. I tell you one thing, his family life is way better. Parents happy together, one really nice sister who's training to be a vet. Mom's a fish fanatic, got this huge aquarium in the front room, and I mean huge. They all sit and stare at it after dinner like it's TV. Don't laugh, I used to myself when I come over for dinner. Dad's some kind of engineer, always got blueprints spread out on the desk in his office. And they all get along. It's too funny. They're probably the best kind of family to cope with this problem. I wonder if he feels guilty about having such a nice, supportive family, while mine's falling apart at the seams. He might. I have spilled the details. I notice he's finished work and he's looking at some website, probably politics. He's a junkie for that. Knows all the conspiracy stuff backwards. Talks circles around me, which takes some doing, let me tell you. Curious for some reason, I take a peek. It's some stuff about dead people. That's something I should know about. I move closer, almost breathing on his neck. Yep, it's some kind of communication from the land of the dead. Holy shit, it's those 9/11 people, or some of them. That happened not long after my crash, so I was like completely clued out for ages. When I started talking to Eric when he was OBE, and that's when I found out. No, wait a minute, somebody told me before that, but I kind of put it out of my mind. I didn't know you could watch Earth TV then either. Let's face it, after I got settled, I just wanted a party. And the people I hung with were the same. Just amazed to be still alive and to not have to fight for your right to party. And if everyone came here or nearby when they died, who really cared how they got here? What was the point? I sat back on the floor and rested. Eric would be sleeping soon. I'd talk with him then. And I did. We were, intimate first. And then he told me about this website he'd just discovered. These 9/11 people that lived together in a village on the astral plane. That was where I lived, right? Had I met them? Could I? I reminded him that it was like really vast, the spirit world, way bigger than the world. I said it with confidence, which is weird because it's basically just what Sonia told me. But she's pretty reliable anyway. Did you know where it was? Did it, the site specify in any way? No, it didn't. And nobody was saying their name or anything. Something to do with not upsetting their families. And what about the Flying Mohammeds, he says? Where the heck are they? Well, shit, what about Muslim heaven? There'd be my guess. He's got that conspiracy look in his eyes, so I know he's going to say something about some secret agency hidden deep within some other slightly less secret agency, remote controlling the planes from some bunker deep within the Rockies, or some basement deep within the Bronx. He's a bit off the wall when it gets to this stuff, and I can't say I'm with him all the way, but you don't think those two dopey white kids did that Oklahoma thing all by themselves, do you? The Ryder truck boys? Just about everyone that worked at that sleazebag motel said they'd seen Middle Eastern guys with them the whole week previous. So how come the FBI didn't interview them? As Eric loves to say, there's something rotten in the state of Denmark. Eric tells me these people seem pretty messed up. Like, why them and why now? Like as if wrong place, wrong time wasn't good enough for them. They're living in this village together just because they all died on the same day. All different types of people, from major businessmen types to secretaries and janitors and firemen. And, people just dropping off packages and shit. Different religions too. People who thought the afterlife was just for Catholics, and people who didn't believe in an afterlife at all. I said, hey, I was surprised too. I thought it was just for U2 fans and the better class of stoners. Just kidding. Anyway, I promised to check it all out and get back to him. That seems to smooth his feathers. We get so wrapped up in this stuff, I never actually tell him about Liz, the lady minister, and her church and seeing Jesus and all that. Funny, you'd think that'd be the first thing I'd tell him. Another time, maybe. No, another time for sure. And believe it or not, I did check it out. You can't say I'm not a woman of my word. I asked Sonia next time I saw her, which was pretty soon actually, and of course she knew. What's her line? People in my line of work need to be kept abreast of the latest. Yeah, something like that. In your world, someone shows you how to get somewhere and give you directions. But here they just kind of take you there. We switch levels so fast I'm not even sure we switch levels. Going up or down or going across. If you do it quick enough, you can't tell the difference. At least I can't. So I'm on the edge of this town, standing in a field or maybe a meadow. That sounds nicer, doesn't it? Wildflowers, all lovely and different, kind of nodding their little heads in a breeze you can hardly feel. Across the grass, I can see a group of stacked condos like you might see in Florida or Southern California. Kind of cubey with second floor balconies and stucco-y. And I remember seeing hotel rooms near the beach once like them. Where were we? Aruba? Maui? Can't remember. Family holidays all kind of blend together now. I see now I had this guilty trip going on over them. Some kids in my school never got to go farther than Cape Cod. And I was all over because Dad had a good job. But never did think much of it then. Here I am on the edge of this village of 9/11 survivors, about to go in and talk to them for Eric's sake. I don't care that much myself. I mean, we're all dead here. Lots through violence and trauma and shit. And I start thinking about my family holidays, just like when I was 10 or 11 and feeling guilty about them. Geez, I really pick the times, don't I? I always used to say back on the Earth days, hanging out, shooting the cool teen breeze with the gang, that I wasn't going to do crack just to feel that ghetto vibe. And now I wonder what was pushing me when I said that. Enough, I'm off to do my research. First person I meet is just coming out her front door as I pass. I say hello and she looks up at me, kind of suspicious, and then apologizes. Apparently a lot of strangers have come by and they feel like specimens in a zoo, on top of the fact they're mostly still freaked out about the whole disaster thing. As she goes on, it sounds more like the universe and everything rant, just on the edge of what the heck was God thinking about anyway. I've heard a lot of that around here already, so I recognize the signs. She asks where I live and I describe it to her. She said that it sounds really great and that she'd like to see it sometime. I said no problem. I tell her it's a pretty cool spot they got here, windy walkways and plants and little trees everywhere. I look up and I see long ivy plants trailing over balconies with flower pots sitting on them. Then I can see an elbow and a forearm and I imagine a conversation and drinks. Not only is it a couple of her neighbours, it's a couple she used to work with. She's surprised that they're still friends after what they went through. Then she changes the subject as if I'd opened a can of worms and wanted it shut again. She's going to their sidewalk cafe for a latte and did I want to come along? When I tell her that me and lattes are like this, she laughs and says, yeah, some things never change. Her name is Cassie, she says, holding out her hand. I shake it and we walk away. At the cafe, just a few chairs and a little round of tables set outside a storefront, really. About 5 or 6 locals are chewing the fat and looking like they're expecting any minute now to get caught relaxing. Is it that too good to be true vibe I've seen so often at my own holiday camp? No, it's a bit more shifty-eyed even, like they're sure the shit's going to hit the fan any minute and they're figuring out an escape route or at least a set of excuses. I'm wondering if it's leftover anxiety when Cassie introduces me around. Everyone is smiley and friendly. Hey, I'm pretty good at that myself sometimes, and this is one of those times, I can tell you. I'd have been a perfect cheerleader material if I hadn't been such a rebel stoner chickaroo as well. I'm doing such a good job of being Melanie right now, it's like I'm standing aside and watching me do it. Watching the robot, I used to call it, back in the old days. This time, it's really, really vivid. I'm actually somehow looking down on myself from above, like my very own little guardian angel. Being your own guardian angel now, isn't that weird? There I am, doing the social thing. How clever of me. It's just a few seconds and all, but what a feeling, wow. And nobody seems to notice. They're all too busy being themselves. Somebody asks how I got here, and I launch into the story and the whole thing about Eric. Murmurs of sympathy as I talk. Maybe they're all older than me, at least they look older, kind of 30 to 35, I'd guess. When I'm done and through with the questions, a guy called Matt says, well, I guess you know how we all got here. Well, says Melanie. Kinda. I just got the headlines, really. Well, he says, we got people here from the planes and the buildings, firemen, cops, janitors, you name it. Some of us were brought here, some of us just kind of woke up in beds here. Some of us came onto the fields outside of town. A lot of us are still in some kind of shock. Folks you see here are the more sociable ones. Others stay in their apartments, keeping to themselves till they work it all out. Another woman joins in and says, we came here so suddenly, so without any kind of warning. It's very hard to accept and adjust. There's this inability to believe it actually happened at all. Seems like a bad dream, really. Some of us think we are still going to wake up and go back to work like nothing happened. The guy spoke again. It's hard for us to get used to not having anything to do anymore. There's not much, business to transact here. Some turn to their hobbies, reading, playing cards, that type of thing. TV, I asked? Yeah, sure, it's hard to give up. And some don't want to. It's like they're linked to the old life, the woman said. I said some stuff about the kids I was around and how they coped or didn't cope. I said the ones that coped the best were the ones who suffered long and slow from something like cancer. They were so happy to be finally free, while the ones like me who died quickly without warning were the most screwed up. No, I wasn't that screwed up myself, at least I didn't think so. But if this shit with my family got any worse, I could go right off the deep end, wherever that was. Everyone laughed. I felt great. I was the centre of attention and I was doing just fine. Shit, I could have my own TV show carrying on like this, interviewing people about their deaths and stuff. Sound good? Why not? We kind of went on like this for a bit, swapping stories and that sort of thing. Some architect guys had thought up their little condo development when they got here, kind of just for them. Instant buildings, what a trip that had been. Of course, they didn't use the word trip. That's from watching Eric's DVD of Gimme Shelter too many times. That and Bummer Man. Eric loves that old hippie lingo. My dad does too. He won't admit it, but 3 drinks and CSNY singing Ohio or Wooden Ships will bring tears to his eyes every time. Mum was nuts about that song Guinevere. I asked them once what living in America was like in 1970. They all got tongue-tied right away. Dad said you really had to be there. Mum agreed and reminded me that was the year of our long trip to Hawaii, which was pretty much like another world. It was a cop-out and I let them away with it. It's a small thing, I guess, but I wish I hadn't. Regrets, I know, what good are they? And that's as true here as there. At least I think it is. Of course, I'm wandering, don't I always? Anyway, I hung out for a while longer, then figuring I'd split before outstaying my welcome, I made my bye-byes. They all said to come back again whenever. I said sure. I walked past the town edge and into the fields before clicking out of their world and back into mine. I just imagined my place and said I wanted to be there now. And there I was, walking up to the front doors of the dorm. Boy, the things that dead people get up to, I tell you. Eric's got an interesting chapter about his life as a guide and some of the nifty stuff he does. He says, the most common thing I help people with has to do with death and grief. When somebody dies, the person they leave behind feels disconnected and confused. Grief is a really personal thing, so they feel alone. When they need my help, their thoughts come right to me, almost like instant messaging or texting. Then, if the timing is right, that's when I step in. I guess I'm what you'd call a high-tech sort of spirit, as I use mainly the internet to reach out. Usually I go first to them in their thoughts and say, without them being aware that it's coming from a spirit, hey, it's time to reach out, get on the internet. When they get online, I get them to type in certain keywords like death or suicide or loss of a son. Actually, I hate to use the word loss. It's so frustrating because people don't really lose us, they just feels like that way for a while. Anyway, as they're looking for answers, my mom's blog, Channeling Eric, pops up. I do my best to attract them to it, whether it's their first or 10th time on the list. I often get the feeling that spirit guides guide people to me because they come in the strangest ways. Sometimes, like Eric says, they type in those words and my blog comes up or my videos come up or something. And then they feel really pleased and liberated by what they see and hear. So yeah, I think that's what goes down. Or sometimes their guide gets together with my guide, or one of my guides, and they say, how are we going to get, person X together with Gord? And they try to figure it out. And then some unusual meeting happens in my physical plane life. The strangest things will happen. I mean, like literally bumping into people and apologizing and having odd conversations about, hey, that's a neat looking little handheld device you got there. This was like 5 years ago. Handhelds weren't so common then, or 7 years ago or whatever. Get yakking to the guy, and he knows all about this stuff, and he's telling me all this interesting stuff that I have no clue about. And then he asks me what I do, and I go, oh, well, you really want to know? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, I'm a medium. Talk to dead people. And he goes, oh, you're just the guy I want to talk to. And then he goes on about how he's a Pentecostal. And I'm saying to him, what? Your community won't even talk to people like me. They think we're, the spawn of Satan and all that. And he says to me, well, I march to the beat of a different drummer. So I wind up connecting him to his deceased mother, who actually really wants to talk to him. And the fact that he's in my town when he lives 50 miles away, easily 50 miles away, and just happens to be there to visit a friend when I walk into Starbucks. And I'm thinking, oh, come on. This is spirit guide stuff for sure. Anyway, shit like that goes on all the time. Back to Eric. The way I give them messages is pretty cool. And that's not to pat on my own back. Actually, I am patting my own back. False modesty is not my style. It's not like an idea explodes in their head. I just stand next to them and send them energy. It's almost like sending a subliminal message that goes straight to their head. Their senses are not consciously registering that they're receiving the message. They don't hear or see anything, but their brain is processing it. That's how spirit communication works. And it's fuzzy, because after I send ideas into their head like, go to the computer, search the internet, use these keywords, find my mom's blog. And then they find what they need and think it's some bright idea they had on their own. That's cool. I don't mind. It doesn't really matter how someone finds me, as long as they find me when they need to. There's this one guy who taught me how to handle humans another way. Instead of using subliminal messages or other types of communication, he showed me how to send energetic cords out everywhere to create a web. Every cord creates a pattern that brings order that I need, the order that I need the human to feel and see on a subconscious level. This order gives them the direction they need to take. When people get stuck in emotions, they get tangled up in their cords because they focus on the chaos instead of the orderly pattern. Subconsciously sensing this web of order helps them recognize that things aren't as random and chaotic as they might think. Sometimes I like to get one human to help another. Here's the way I do it. I get one channeling Eric blog member who's been there for a while, a veteran who came in with a lot of spiritual understanding or got that understanding from the things I've talked about. Then I'll nudge a person to the blog even if they're struggling. A lot of times the veteran member will post a comment that's actually the answer the new member needs. All of a sudden the veteran and the newbie are connected as teacher and student, and I don't have to teach them the lesson myself. People have an endless capacity to heal each other, but sometimes they just need a little nudge to get it starting. And, you know, I like being that nudge. And there's more. Always more. The afterlife is endless. Eternity, you know. And so is chatting about it. That's endless too. Because there's always greater mysteries beyond the little ones that you've discovered and feel comfortable in. Ponder that for a while. And I shall see you anon, my friends.